Congress Jim Jordan, great state of Ohio, joins us now. We got a lot to dive into with him. But right off the top, Congressman, you've been one of the longest, most steadfast supporters of Donald Trump anywhere in American politics. Were even you surprised by the 30-point win in Iowa? And as a core, as a subpart to that, is this over? Does Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, do they need to drop out? And do we just need to start looking towards the general in 10 months?
Yeah, I think it's over. I mean, it was a huge win in minus 20-degree weather. People came out. I thought it was interesting, though. One of the polling things I saw was, I think it was like almost 8 out of 10 Iowa voters, Republican voters, said they believe the government has been weaponized against the American people, and who more so than weaponized against President Trump. So I think that was they believe that because it's the truth, and that was a big motivating thing. And I think one of the reasons that President Trump won with such a big margin. Plus, I mean, people just know this guy did what he said. You know, that's most politicians say one thing, get in office, and don't do it. He actually did what he told the American people he was going to do, and I think compared to Joe Biden and where we're at, people respect that as well. So it was a big win. It was fun to be out there and see it all happen. And like you say, I think he's going to win New Hampshire. I think he's going to win South Carolina and Nevada, and he's going to get the nomination. And more importantly, I think he's going to be our next president.
Congressman Jordan, appreciate you being with us. Clay and I have been talking a bit about the Fani Willis situation. She's the prosecutor, just for our audience, who has brought the RICO case, the racketeering case against Trump over alleged issues in Fulton County. Looks like she has some issues of her own, ethical and perhaps even legal. What do you make of this, and what does it say about yet another of the efforts to get Donald Trump seeming to run into some problems?
Yeah, I think it's been a joke from the get-go. Remember, she indicted 19 people, and she thought about indicting 3 United States senators, including the top Republican on the Senate Judiciary Committee. That's how ridiculous this is. But now we find out that she's hired this Nathan Wade, paid him more than actual RICO experts, and it's supposed to be a RICO type trial or charge. She's paying him more. A guy who's been held in contempt, a guy who billed 24 hours straight, I guess, on his billing. And you guys were on the front edge of this. I happened to catch your show. We were driving last week, and you guys you were on this before I think just about anybody. But we actually sent Mr. Wade a letter, and we said, we want to know who'd you talk to in the DOJ. Give us all the communications you had. We want to know who'd you talk to in the White House. And just as importantly, who'd you talk on the January 6th committee to help, quote, according to the press, jumpstart the district attorney's investigation down there into President Trump. So we want some answers to this, too, as I think the American people do. But you're right. This all looks, I think, just more ridiculous now when we find out this guy, this Mr. Wade, who Fani Willis has hired, who I don't think really has much of an expertise in the subject of the entire investigation.
No doubt, and I want to hammer this home. I'm glad you guys have opened this investigation into Willis. The state of Georgia, we've got a lot of Georgia politicians who listen to this show. We appreciate everybody there. This is, I know you would probably second this, as much as might need to be taking place on a federal level, and I appreciate, again, you guys shining the spotlight on this. State of Georgia needs to be investigating this prosecutor, Fani Willis, and everybody else involved in this investigation, in your opinion, as well, right?
Yeah. And I thought it was great that you guys, like I said, I caught your show and you were talking about this. Yeah, and I do believe that Governor Kemp and the Attorney General now are beginning to do that, which I think is important. But there have been all kinds of problems with every single one of these. We actually did a hearing in Manhattan when Alvin Bragg did his indictment of President Trump, and now you see what's going on here in Atlanta. And of course, we got all kinds of things we can say about Jack Smith and his indictment in Miami and the one in here in D.C. So it's all a problem. But again, I to go back to the first topic, President Trump has a line he uses in just about every time he gives a speech. I think he's got a lot of great lines, but he always says, "They're coming after me because I'm fighting for you." Well, when we were with him in Iowa, he actually changed the line. He said, "They're coming after my freedom because I'm fighting for yours." And this is true. People can see it. 4 indictments, 2 state, 2 federal, all the crazy that people can see it because Americans have common sense. And I think that's a huge motivating factor in why people came out in such a big way in Iowa. And I think are going to continue to do it in this election cycle.
Speaking of Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio, and Congressman, I see here this letter from the Committee on the Judiciary and Select Committee on the Weaponization of Federal Government that is looking into whether, and you tweeted about this, whether the federal government flagged terms like MAGA and Trump to financial institutions if Americans completed transactions using those terms. Also, if you bought a religious text like a Bible or shopped at Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah.
What the heck is going on here?
Well, we've learned in the last year about all the censorship, big tech, big government, big academia, big media, all working to censor Americans. Now we know it's big government, big corporations, big banks working to financially surveil Americans. And it's frightening because we're just on the front end of this, but you got banks that are at the urging of the federal government searching their customers, their transactions using key terms. And the terms were, as you just described, out there, Trump, MAGA. But I think more importantly, it's like, did they buy something at Cabela's? Did they buy a firearm at Bass Pro Shop or whatever? And this idea that religious text, I mean, if you buy a Bible and a gun and somehow you're on the domestic violent extremist watch list. And when you read through some of the documents, the initial documents we've gotten, it sounds exactly like that memorandum from the Richmond field office that we learned about a little over a year ago, where the Richmond field office of the FBI was describing pro-life Catholics as radical extremists. It reads exactly like that garbage. And so now we know it's not just limited to censorship. It's like financial surveillance. And so we're literally on the front end of this, but we're going to dig into this because this is just as scary as the censorship effort that we've uncovered over the last year.
We're talking to Congressman Jim Jordan. Okay, so let's go into actual legislation that is taking place right now on Capitol Hill. Buck and I started off the show today talking about this idea of border security being coupled with Ukraine, which I think is, for many people out there, dead on arrival in terms of the way people are responding, but also the new speaker. We're hearing a lot of pressure potentially about what might happen to him over the negotiations on budget bills going forward. From your perspective, and you're better plugged in than almost anybody probably in the entire country, what should we know about what's going on Capitol Hill right now, and where is this going?
Well, there are three big issues, I think, here in the next month or so that are going to be dealt with on Capitol Hill. Actually, four, but you count the impeachment inquiry, but that's part of the oversight effort. But when it comes to legislation, you got the appropriations thing. We got to fund the government and how that all plays out. You got the FISA renewal, which is huge, because there has to be reforms there to protect American security, particularly in light of what we just talked about with censorship and with this financial surveillance. And then, of course, it's this Ukraine border issue. And, we're trying to navigate all those. I do think this bill that was sort of leaked out that was coming from the Senate is a non-starter. Speaker Johnson has indicated he's not going to go for what that, the language that leaked out there. But yeah, the American people understand, let's secure our border before we even think about doing anything more for Ukraine. I voted against most of the money for Ukraine, so I'm not keen on that because people still can't tell me what the objective is. What's our goal? What's our objective? Normally, when you're going to fund something, what are we trying? Are we trying to move them out of the Donbass region of Ukraine? Are we trying to get them out of Crimea, which they've had now for 10 years? What's the objective? So I sort of think we need to know that before you continue to fund Ukraine. And then, of course, people are focused on our border first. So I think what's been talked about in the Senate is basically a non-starter in the House. Speaker Johnson has indicated so, and I think that's where the American people are, and it's the right position.
Do you think Speaker Johnson is safe? We saw what happened with Kevin McCarthy and the attempt to find a new speaker. The margin now, better than me, is down to 2 or 3 votes with illnesses and with people with special elections coming up and everything else. I mean, it's almost never been closer. Is he safe in your mind?
I mean, I think Mike's he's a good man. He's a good friend. I thought it was a complete mistake to do what happened to Speaker McCarthy. I think it'd be a mistake to do that to Speaker Johnson. We got to navigate these through. We got to get reform on FISA. We got to continue to do our oversight. We got to continue to finish this impeachment inquiry and then make a decision of whether we're going to move forward with articles on the President of the United States. We got to get those done, but I don't see how it helps us or how we help the American people by changing speakers again. So let's focus on getting our job done. Let's focus on our oversight. And let's get to November, where President Trump is going to win this election and get in there and be our next president and really make a change to things. I think that's in the best interest of the American people, and that's what I'm pushing for.
Congressman Jim Jordan, always good to have you on with us, sir. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys. Keep up the good work.